What if Ron was in Hufflepuff, the finale? Hey, brother! If y'all have made it this far, I'm assuming you're up with the program. Here's where we've just left off. Voldemort has ambushed Harry, Ron, and Dumbledore in the cave where the locket was supposed to be hidden. The locket is successfully retrieved, but while Dumbledore had taken a moment to send the boys off to safety, Voldemort saw his window and attacked, leaving Dumbledore dead and the boys without a lead on where to find the Hogwarts Horcrux. And with that in mind, and without any further ado, let's finish this thing. The days following Dumbledore's death were some of the most tense Harry had ever experienced. He was positive that Voldemort would try to attack or infiltrate the castle to try and remove or double the protections on his Horcrux, whatever it was. And without Dumbledore's own protections in place, Harry was certain he would be able to break through, even though the teachers had been busy casting as many protective enchantments as they could. Maybe he thinks it's hidden so well he doesn't even need to bother, suggested Ron, who too had been curious about Voldemort's lack of action. This thought had crossed Harry's mind as well. Was it possible that Voldemort had discovered a hiding place in the school so secret that no other student had come across it since he left the school himself? It felt impossible, and yet Harry reminded himself that Voldemort had successfully located the centuries-lost Chamber of Secrets and used another Horcrux to lead people to it. What if this final Horcrux was also located in such a remote section of the castle there weren't even legends of it? And yet, no, every now and then Harry would feel faint pangs of fear or anger that were not his own, and was convinced this was Voldemort fearing them finding that final Horcrux. Important to point out that Ron of course felt these pains as well, but was less adept at interpreting Voldemort's emotions. So why doesn't Voldemort attack the castle right away? Well, there's really two main reasons. Even without Dumbledore there, the castle is heavily protected. And don't forget that Voldemort doesn't really have an army to speak of this time. He's got like 4 Death Eaters. Plus, arrogant as he is, and despite Dumbledore having found the cave, he believes his Hogwarts Horcrux very safe, as it's been right under Dumbledore's nose for years and never been discovered. But his real cause for delay lies back with Lucius Malfoy's folly back in the graveyard when he took Ron's blood instead of Harry's. Usually this is Voldemort's way around Lily's sacrifice, sort of. After doing so, he can physically touch Harry and cast spells at him without them rebounding upon himself.
Dear sweet Lily Potter gave her life for her only son. She provided the ultimate protection.
Of course, that's actually a hollow victory, though, as Voldemort took the protection into himself and then just acts as the, love crux for Harry, but whatever. The point is that Voldemort rightly believes the protection is still in place, so he avoids attacking the castle because he might meet Harry, who has invincible protection against him.
I could not touch him.
And unable to procure his blood, he is seeking a new solution to this problem in the form of just sheer, raw power. Which is why today's episode is brought to you by Monster Energy Drink, the chosen energy drink of the Dark Lord. No, I'm just kidding. Raw power in the form of a legendary wand that must always win duels for its master. It would appear a visit to Grigorovich is in order. And you know what? If there's time, maybe a 7-Eleven on the way. Meanwhile, despite the hunt for the Hogwarts Horcrux going poorly, there hasn't been nothing to celebrate on Harry and Ron's end of things. Because after Sirius saw the note in the locket, he instantly recognized the handwriting and initials as his brother's. Regulus. Sirius doubted that something as important as that would just be lying around, but suggested that they at least start at his childhood home to see if they could find any clues. And number 12 Grimmauld Place is something of a shock to Harry, who had spent the last year living with his godfather in a much more secluded and humble home. The inside of the Black residence was infested with a large number of magical vermin, and they were loudly greeted by a screaming portrait Sirius informed them was his mother. After sidestepping a large brown patch in the entryway that seemed to be breathing, Sirius showed them to Regulus's old room, scowling the whole way. His room was covered in the green hangings of Slytherin House. A large black family crest was positioned over his bed. A moving photo of a house Quidditch team in old robes sat on his nightstand, and a large poster of a blonde wizard Harry had never seen hung on the wall. Beneath the poster read the heading, Fjord das Grosser Val. Well, let's start looking around, said Sirius. Careful opening any drawers in case anything jumps out at you. The next 10 minutes were spent upending everything in the room, looking for any hint about the location of the horcrux. Harry had just finished inspecting a small wooden box that ended up being full of rotten flobberworms when he heard Ron shout. Pretty sure it's supposed to be wart cap powder inside of there that makes your hand look like some type of like weird glove type situation. But you know what? I got that question wrong on J versus Ben, so whatever. But y'all, we need to take a brief pause right there to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, BetterHelp. Y'all, we are inside such a wonderful time of year. Despite the cooler weather, the holidays always have such a warmth to them. And my little family of my wife, daughter, and I have been doing Christmas movie nights on the couch with stovetop popcorn, and it's been just perfect. But I know that every year, once the holidays have passed, these long months of short days can certainly start to take their toll. That is why I am so glad that I have integrated therapy as a regular part of my monthly routine. I schedule all of my appointments a full year out in advance, and it really is such a game changer. It's amazing to me just how much even identifying how much something like the weather can impact your mood can give you more power over these lows. And a therapist can help you zero in on what actions you can be taking to give you those cozy couch movie night feels all year long. And BetterHelp is great because it's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. So find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/super today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/super. Link in the description down below. Harry, come look at this, Ron shouted. He just emptied a drawer from Regulus's desk and was holding up. The locket, exclaimed Harry, spotting the large emerald S emblazoned upon it. Then a creak at the door made all three of them jump. Harry turned to see the dirtiest house elf he'd ever laid eyes on, stumbling into the room, evidently unpleased to see them. Creature! Barked Sirius. For several minutes, the house elf creature scolded Sirius, lamenting the damage done to the house and vehemently declaring him a disgrace to the Black family. Eventually, Sirius shouted at Creature to get out. And apparently, still bound by the house elf's enslavement to the House of Black, he apparated on the spot and left the room. I never thought I'd see that pathetic old wart plaster again, said Sirius. Come on, boys, let's head back to school. So the trio returns to school and brings the locket to Dumbledore's office, where the Sword of Gryffindor is still lying on the desk. And you might be wondering if they need to open the locket to destroy it, and I think the answer is actually no. Like, it times out nicely in the books that they believe they need to open it to destroy it, but then figure out how to do it exactly when they get the sword, so it's all very exciting. But if they just had the sword to begin with, certainly they would have tried, and I see no reason why it wouldn't have worked. So, Harry offers the sword to Sirius, since it had been his brother who had recovered the locket, and allows him the honor of destroying the Horcrux. Which, let me just interject to say that I love for two reasons. The first of which is that they physically handle the locket in book 5, then just toss it, and then have to re-find it again, which is just a nightmare to imagine. And 2, it's just kind of fun that Sirius gets to finish Regulus's work and know that in the end his brother actually ended up being good. Something Sirius never gets to learn in the main series. Ever. But with the locket out of the way, the hunt for the Hogwarts Horcrux resumes, with little to go on other than maybe it has something to do with Ravenclaw? Meanwhile, Voldemort has successfully tracked down Grigorovich and extracted the memory about the thief, wondering where he is now when he is summoned most surreptitiously to Malfoy Manor by his latest recruit, Draco Malfoy. Draco has interesting news for Voldemort, reported to him by the surprise arrival of a manky old house elf named Creature that informed him Harry Potter, Sirius Black, and some red-haired git in hand-me-down robes were searching the Black family home and had located a large locket that Creature recognized as one of the Dark Lord's possessions, having been the one to test its defenses. And I know what you're thinking here. Regulus wanted Creature to destroy the locket, and his greatest failure is not destroying it.
Before Master Regulus died, he ordered Creature to destroy it, but no matter how hard Creature tried, he could not do it.
So why would he try to give it back? But the thing you have to remember is that Creature doesn't really understand the full scope of the instructions, and Regulus dies pretty much as he is giving these instructions. Creature may as well have believed that the destruction of the locket was what Voldemort himself may have wanted. But at the description of the locket, Voldemort loses control and lashes out in anger, killing Creature on the spot, but he immediately regains his composure. Very good, Draco. You have done well to tell me this, and your obedience shall be rewarded. You are much smarter than your father, who thought he could disobey my orders, but I dealt with him. And with that, he vanishes to inspect Grimmauld Place for himself to try and confirm the location of the locket. He upends the entire house in Regulus's room, seething in anger, forced to accept that the locket is gone. He lets out a terrible scream of rage that far away sends Harry and Ron to their knees in pain. But then, as he stands in the wrecked room, his eyes read the words, "Für das große Wohl," and a maniacal laughter overtakes him as he lays eyes on the blonde wizard in the poster. Back at Hogwarts, though, Harry and Ron recover from a visit into Voldemort's mind where they witnessed him inside of Regulus's room. They make eye contact. "He knows about the locket," Ron says. "It must have been Kreacher when Sirius told him to get out. He could have gone to the Malfoys. His mom's related to Sirius. She could have..." But Harry stopped mid-thought. The vision of Kreacher and Narcissa Malfoy fixed in his brain made him realize something. "Dobby!" Harry called into the empty room, and crack! The house elf appeared, bowing low. Harry quickly explained, making sure to leave out certain details, that he needed help finding a room at Hogwarts that nobody would know about, not even the teachers. And to his great surprise, Dobby merely smiled. "Dobby knows of a room, sir. It's called the Come and Go Room, or the Room of Requirements. We hides things there. The room is not always there, but it is always equipped for a seeker's needs." This was beyond what Harry could have hoped for. If Voldemort needed a place to hide his Horcrux, a secret vanishing room whose insides changed to fit the needs of the Seeker sounded like just the place. "Show us, Dobby." And so several minutes later, they were standing before the bare stretch of wall with Dobby explaining how to get in. This was it. Harry could feel it. He immediately began pacing, thinking hard that he needed to find the place Voldemort hid something. But nothing happened. The wall remained solid. "What happened, Dobby? Why didn't it work?" "I don't know, Harry Potter, sir. I asked it to show me the room where Voldemort hid something." "Hang on," said Ron. "Maybe we can't ask it to show what he asked for. We just have to ask it the same thing, so just a room to hide stuff." And sure enough, it worked. 3 more times past the wall and a door had materialized, inside of which was a breathtaking sight. A room the size of a cathedral, filled with mountains and rows of discarded and hidden things from generations of students. "We don't even know what we're looking for," said Ron with dawning comprehension of the new problem. "Or if it's even in here." "It's here," said Harry confidently. "I know this is right." But he also knew that him and Ron would never be able to search the entire room, especially with no idea what they were looking for. And he had a bad feeling that time was running out. That burst of happiness from Voldemort felt very foreboding. Just in case you haven't put those pieces together yet, the burst of happiness that Voldemort felt was the recognition of Grindelwald on the wall. That German phrase I keep attempting to say is "for the greater good," and he would have seen that same person, Grindelwald, inside of the memory of Grigorovich, stealing it from him. "You stay and keep searching. Anything with an eagle or a lion on it. I'm going to get help." And Harry left Ron to search. 15 minutes later, he had returned with Cho, Hermione, and Neville, having explained to Cho, who, don't forget, he's actually dating this go-round, and has asked her about if there are any Ravenclaw artifacts, and learned about the diadem. However, he doesn't explain any of the Horcrux information, but now at least they have more eyes and hands and some direction. As he re-entered the room, though, another burst of happiness overtook him from Voldemort, and his mind was filled with the haunting image of Dumbledore's body dead on an island in a cave, and Voldemort grabbing his wand. "What was that? Why'd he take his wand?" asked Ron. "Dunno," said Harry. "Let's start looking." The extra help is useful, and in no time at all, Harry hears Cho call out that she's found something, and sure enough, she's holding up the silver tiara with the large sapphire stone and eagle engraving. "Amazing," shouts Harry. "Now quick, we have to destroy it." "Destroy it?" questions Cho. "But couldn't we use it?" "No, don't put it on. I'll explain later. It's all to do with defeating Voldemort. Now come on." But then Harry and Ron fall to their knees again as another vision overtakes them. An island in the sea, a huge explosion, rocks falling everywhere, and more mirthless laughter. Returning to the present, Harry notices Cho, eyes still staring at the diadem, but she breaks away, nods, and follows Harry out of the room and back to Dumbledore's office, where the sword is waiting for them. "Place it here, on the desk," says Harry, who's now holding the sword in his hand. "Cho, Harry, it's the only known relic of Ravenclaw. It spoke to me when I grabbed it. We can use it." And without warning, she forced the diadem onto her head, and she screamed. Harry barely had any time to register what was happening. Cho's eyes had begun to glow white. She was floating in the air. She was laughing. He was laughing. He could see the scene from several points of view. He could see himself through Cho's eyes, through Ron's eyes. He was Cho, he was Ron was him, and Voldemort was there too, laughing, taking in the scene around him, staring out at the room through Cho's eyes, seeing Hermione, Neville, Harry, and Ron staring up at him, at them. Okay, so pause. What's happening here is that, as you know, the diadem is supposed to offer extra wisdom or intelligence to whoever wears it, but of course it's corrupted as a horcrux. Thus, its power now is that uniquely the bit of soul inside of it shares memory and knowledge with Voldemort Prime. Whatever he knows, it knows, and if someone puts the diadem on, he can control that person from wherever he is, almost as if he has a second body somewhere else, like an avatar or something. Unpause. Potter! Voldemort's cold voice rings out. See now how fate favors Lord Voldemort. I knew you had discovered my secret and sought to move my horcrux, and yet my horcrux has delivered me to you. But first, let's correct Lucius's mistake, shall we? Harry could hardly make out what was happening. He was watching everything unfold from 3 different points of view, and his scar was pounding. He watched Cho pull out her own wand, watch her point it at Ron, watched himself as Cho point the wand at Ron, and the most horrible, saw from Ron's point of view the green flash. Avada Kedavra! There was no time to react. Nothing to be done. The spell hit Ron full in the chest, and he collapsed, dead. Yeah, there you go. But nobody had Cho kills Ron on their bingo card, did ya? Did ya? Anyway, we continue. Rage erupted inside of Harry like nothing he'd ever experienced, and the anger forced him back inside of his own mind with no other visions. But what could he do? The sword had fallen out of his hands. He grabbed his wand ready to fight, but he couldn't kill Cho, couldn't hurt her. And yet, too late, Harry Potter. You're dead at last. Cho's wand raised once more, and then clang! Hermione had grabbed the sword off the floor and rushed at Cho's floating figure, swinging with accuracy Harry wouldn't have believed. The blade had collided with the diadem, creating a huge crack down the front. It had miraculously worked. The small tiara fell off Cho's head, who collapsed on the floor, unconscious, but with no visible injuries. She's still breathing, said Neville, who had rushed to her side, apparently the only one not in complete shock. With Cho's safety assured, Harry turned his head to his brother, Ron, whose lifeless form lay across the office from him. He rushed to his side, unable to believe it. Sure, there had to be some mistake, some way back, and yet also knew Ron's death was true. He had felt it, seen it, done it. It couldn't be. There had to be an explanation. He looked up at the quiet face of Dumbledore in his portrait, who had a grave expression on his face. Somehow, Harry knew what he had to do, why he could see through Voldemort's eyes, what all of this had been for. They had come so far, but every piece of Voldemort had to be destroyed, and he understood now he, Harry, had to be destroyed. He gave a solemn nod to Dumbledore's portrait when the room shook violently. An explosion could be heard in the distance. Voldemort had arrived. Racing to the nearest window, Harry could see a small envoy of masked wizards crossing the grounds towards the castle, huge balls of light being hurled from their wands towards the ramparts. Voldemort was at their center, and Harry could see the faint dark outline of the giant snake Nagini at his side. Harry pushed away from the window and without a word shot from the headmaster's suite, barreling through corridors, jumping clear over the trick step as he made his way towards the castle entrance and the invading army of Death Eaters. He understood now the small island he had witnessed before must have been Voldemort breaking open Azkaban to swell his ranks before attempting an attack on the castle. The great oak doors almost seemed to expect him and shot open as Harry leapt onto the grounds. He stood calmly before the illuminated castle behind him. The Death Eaters froze and made way for Voldemort, parting their ranks so he could step forward to face Harry. Okay, so quick pause again. This is an important moment because, remember, Voldemort hasn't taken Harry's blood this time. He is, however, master of the Elder Wand. For real. Can he attack him? And without Lily's blood in his veins, can Harry survive? Voldemort stared at the boy standing before him, before lifting his wand and splitting the silence as he screamed, Avada Kedavra! Just then, Harry felt himself lying on a warm surface, unsure of where he was. He slowly opened his eyes to see a bright mist. He sat up and realized the mist wasn't obscuring his surroundings, but rather making them. That's funny, said a voice. I was sure this was a place for the Weasleys who had, kicked it. Harry spun to see red hair, almost blinding amongst the mist. Ron, he shouted. How? But you were, am I? Where are we? I don't know. I got here just before you, or at least I think I did. I'm not sure if there's time here, Ron responded. They heard a pathetic whimpering noise nearby and recoiled at the sight of a small, naked something. What is it? Ron asked when there came a third soft voice. Nothing two boys as brave and whole and good need to concern themselves with. Trust me, you cannot help. Dumbledore! Harry and Ron shouted together as they saw their headmaster appear from the mist. They ran towards him before coming to a sudden halt. But sir, you're dead. Does that mean... are we? That is the question, isn't it? On the whole, dear boys, I think not. Dumbledore went on to explain that when Harry was just a boy, that his mother had sacrificed herself to save him. It caused Voldemort's curse to backfire, but a piece of Voldemort's soul had latched itself onto the only living thing in the room. He explained that this protection quite uniquely protected Harry from so much as being touched by Voldemort. But sir, he was able to, he used the killing curse, and no one was there to protect me this time. I'm afraid I might be to blame. I used my last moment to protect you both. A choice I would make again, Dumbledore replied. But that isn't your fault, sir, Ron interjected, looking sympathetically at his headmaster. No, that part is of no fault but Voldemort's, whose cruelty knows no bounds. I speak instead to the wand I had in my possession, a wand that possessed unique powers, the Elder Wand. Harry and Ron listened with rapt attention. When he defeated me in the cave, he became the master of the Elder Wand. New powers came under his command, and, as it seems, the power to successfully attack you, Harry. But, sir, said Harry nervously, you said I'm not dead. How can that be? Ah, said Dumbledore with a flicker of a smile. For that, we must give thanks to Mr. Ronald Weasley. Ron blushed before asking, me? But what did I do? Voldemort took your blood that night in the graveyard to his own great displeasure. Poor Lucius Malfoy is proof of that. My blood? But what does that have to do with Harry? You are brothers, responded Dumbledore simply. Magic has a funny way of understanding these things, especially when it comes to love. Lily died to protect you, Harry, to protect her family. When your parents took Harry in, the Weasleys became his family and loved him as one of their own, and in doing so, have all been protected by Lily's sacrifice. Harry and Ron stood in stunned silence. Ron finally broke it, asking, Harry could see into Voldemort's mind because he had a piece of Voldemort's soul within him. Is that why I could too? Because he took my blood? That is an excellent question. However, not the reason why you could see into Voldemort's mind. I'm afraid, once again, I am at fault. You see, I was sorely tempted to return my own family. The ring featured a special stone I had sought long ago, the Resurrection Stone. I thought maybe, if I put it on, I could bring them back to me. A foolish and selfish thought, Dumbledore finished bitterly. I was lucky to have you both there. Ron, you discovered Hufflepuff's cup, which was a horcrux. Its own magic, combined with Fawkes's tears, was able to heal not only myself, but also the cup, purging it of Voldemort's soul. The problem, however, is that Phoenix tears are not destructive in nature. In fact, only the opposite is true. While they were able to purify the cup, it forced the piece of Voldemort's soul out, and unfortunately, directly into the person holding it. I became a horcrux? Dumbledore stared down his crooked nose at Ron, glowing with pride as his blue eyes began to water. You were. When Voldemort attacked you with Miss Chang's body, he inadvertently found a way around Lily's protection without meaning to, which only protected you from Voldemort. But since he used another's body, he trailed off, understanding flashing across the boys' faces. Another long silence filled the space. We have to go back, don't we? Harry finally asked. Well, it would appear you have found your own loophole. When Voldemort took your blood, Mr. Weasley, he also took Lily's sacrifice. Thus, if you wish, and you do not have to, I suspect we could defeat Voldemort once and for all. And with that, Dumbledore stepped away into the mist. Just then, Harry felt the cool breeze brush over him. A stunned silence seemed to echo across the grounds. Something had happened. It sounded as though Voldemort was returning to his feet. Teachers and students alike seemed to be pouring from the castle to discover the scene before them, gasping at what they saw. Harry lying still on the ground. Harry's fingers twitched, fastening discreetly around his wand, which lay next to him. Barely daring to move, Harry opened his eyelids a fraction and saw Voldemort standing in front of a crowd of Death Eaters, the great snake slithering around his feet. Your great savior is defeated, and see now what happens to those who oppose Lord Voldemort. Nagini, feast. Harry could feel the snake approaching him. The time to act was soon approaching. 20 feet away, 15, 10. And just as Harry made to sit up, he heard a battle cry from the students behind him, and Ron rushed forward, carrying the sword of Gryffindor high above him. So shocked was Voldemort at Ron's appearance that he hesitated for just long enough. This was it. Ron was going to kill the snake. And then... Expelliarmus! The spell hit Ron mid-stride and the sword skittered out of his hand. Draco Malfoy was emerging from behind Voldemort, wand raised, and Voldemort let out a laugh. Very good, Draco. Very well indeed. Draco picked up the sword and looked back at Ron, Nagini drawing herself up, ready to consume Harry. You killed my father, Weasley. Or at least that's what I thought. But you're really not clever enough for that, are you? No, you're only clever enough to attack a snake when the real man you want is over there. What could you be thinking? From behind his eyelids, he thought he could just barely make out Draco give the smallest wink, and then, without warning, he raised the sword, and with a great slashing motion, cut the head off the snake. That's for my father, he said, staring at Voldemort, whose eyes filled with fury. He raised the Elder Wand again and aimed at Draco. But now Harry was on his feet and he rushed forward. Voldemort realized who his new attacker was at just the last moment, aiming now for Harry. Harry did not know if it was on instinct or if his wand was somehow magnetically drawn towards Voldemort, but without saying a single spell, watched as magnificent golden flames erupted from his wand tip. They crashed into the oncoming green light and seemed to light fire to death itself, a fire that spread all the way to Voldemort's wand tip, igniting first it, and then its master. Voldemort's screams ripped the air as the flames engulfed him. It seemed to last ages, or maybe only moments, but then, as suddenly as they'd appeared, the flames were all gone, and all that remained was a small pile of ash. And that is what would have happened if Ron was sorted into Hufflepuff. Whew, we did it!
We did it!
Now, wait a second. Does this mean that both Cedric and Sirius made it to the end of the book? Let's take it back again, people. From the top! Y'all, as always, I cannot thank you enough for all of your support through this very long 10-part series, but we really hope that you've enjoyed it along the way. If you'd like to find out what would have happened if Harry was in Slytherin, you can do so right over here, but otherwise, until next time, bye!